I promise I will actually talk about cross stitch today. Hey everyone, it has been a minute since I have done a personal update on Flosstube. I'm kind of new here and wasn't sticking to a particular schedule anyway, and I did get a little bit sidetracked by current events. There's a war going on in Ukraine. That's the thing. I have done some separate updates. I recommend you can go watch those videos if that's something you would like. For me personally, I decided it was a little bit easier to kind of separate out and have more obvious Stitch for Ukraine videos and then personal videos. So I'll mostly be talking about personal stuff here. But it was interesting, like I said some few things, I started a hashtag and people actually listened. And I realized I wasn't actually expecting that to happen. Yeah, I'm glad people are helping and wanting to speak out about some of the current injustices that are happening. Of course, remember that the war in Ukraine is not the only thing going on in the world right now. So if you are not super knowledgeable about those types of things, I recommend that you use it as kind of a gateway to learn about some of the other injustices that have already been going on, because there is definitely unequal attention in the media to the war in Ukraine and many other issues. And that's a little unfair. But one thing that I have since learned is I got a lot of wonderful shout outs. I have learned that I should introduce myself again. Um, I don't like introducing myself at the beginning of my videos because, you can read it. It's down there. That's enough, right? Generally not. Um, so my name is Laura. My channel is Tarsier Stitches. I forgot that most people don't know what a tarsier is, so it's tarsier. This is my stuffed tarsier. He's actually a lot larger. Real tarsiers are about like the size of your fist. If you are curious and would like to learn more, I recommend you go check out my very first Flosstube video because I introduce you into tarsiers, what they are, give you a little info. Also tell you the story of why I named my channel Tarsier Stitches because they really did lead me to cross stitch. I think it's an adorable story. So if you would like to learn more about me and my personal life, recommend you go check that out. A couple of you have also noticed on my Instagram, I go by Laura Chieko. And English speakers do tend to panic when they see Chieko. And that's also why on YouTube I tend to just call myself Laura because it's easier. So if you don't want to be my personal friend, you don't need to learn how to say Chieko. That's fine. Just like don't try. It's okay. If you would like to know how to say it, though, it is 3 syllables. Chi-a-ko. Chieko. Just say it all. Don't think too much about it. But, only if you want to like hang out with me one-on-one, have individual conversations. If you just want to watch my floss tubes and write nice comments to each other, just call me Laura, the girl who loves tarsiers a lot. That is absolutely appropriate. Also of note, my pronouns are she, her. I might try and introduce myself in future videos, but I don't like to. That's why I put it in writing down below. So sorry for any confusion I may have caused, y'all. But one thing that has been super fun is through this, I actually discovered a couple of new um, Flosstube channels. So I've been really enjoying Yasmin Made with Love. And I can so tell that all of your things are made with love. And I've started from the very beginning and I'm trying to watch all of your backlog of videos because I really like seeing people's stories. So Yasmin is one of my new favorite Flosstubers. I'm also really enjoying Stitch with Susie. She's even newer than I am. And she did a wonderful video on Ukrainian art tradition. So if you have not watched that, you should definitely go check it out. The other thing I was doing is I just went and I've been watching the backlog of videos from Bobo Jessie Stitches. She has so many videos. So it is a bit of a lot. That's why it took me a little bit to get through it because I was just overwhelmed, like, oh wow, this backlog is big. But I do really enjoy seeing this story, and like there are actually a lot of like really interesting educational tidbits in Jessie's videos. So that has been really cool. She also loves Sailor Moon just as much, if not even more than I do, and that's really nice to see. Um, Anime is another one of my loves. If you've not gotten into anime, highly recommend it. The new Jutsu Kaisen movie is out and I haven't seen it yet, and it's supposed to be really good. So you should give it a try. Um, but yeah. Oh, also, if you've heard of anybody who shouted me out that I didn't hear about yet, I'd love to know. I will admit though, some of the shout outs I got are because I sent a personal email and asked nicely. So that's why Michelle Bendy knew about me. And of course, Sumi Sarah said some nice things. Krista West from Athlea for Folk Embroidery was really supportive as well. So thank you everybody who helped me. Yeah, I felt like I made it when I saw DMC official promoting the Stitch for Ukraine hashtag. I do feel a little bit good about that one. But anyway, we should probably talk about cross stitch. So I have a story for you all. My iron exploded on me. Am I embellishing this story for dramatic effect? Absolutely. The fish was this big. But anyway, so here is my adorable iron. It is my favorite color of purple. You can also tell it's like kind of an old iron. I borrowed, stole, it's my mom's. She's letting me use it. But you can tell it's like a little bit of an old iron. There's no steam function, but I like how it's a little bit smaller, easy to control. I really like the flat face, and also favorite color, you know. But you know, it's old and you know, it fell a few weeks ago. So you see there's a chunk out, but it was still working, you know, gets up to temp and everything. And then I was using it and all of this just like popped off. All of it. Oh, and now you want to stay? Well, thanks. My iron is not supporting the telling of this story. Gonna sabotage me. There we go. That's what happened. And yeah, the handle does this now. So I was in the middle of ironing. It was super hot and like it popped off and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, the handle. This is not safe." So thankfully, I was just able to like carefully set it down, unplug it. So yeah, I haven't used this iron since. I've actually been holding on to it. This happened a couple of months ago at this point, and I've been holding on to these pieces for the sole purpose of being able to tell you this story. But what amuses me even further is I felt a little sheepish because it's not mine, it's my mom's. I was like, I'm really sorry. And my mom was like, you realize this is older than my marriage, right? Where she was like kind of surprised that it lasts this long. And then she's like, here's another iron I have that's also vintage. I don't know why my mom has been collecting so many old irons, or maybe this is just more a reflection that older stuff was built to last. But this one's fun because you can see it comes with this little cover that snaps on and off. There's unfortunately a little bit of something here. I tried to wash it off, but I haven't been able to get it. But it also hasn't been affecting my fabric. So I have another tiny iron, even if it's not quite as much. It's not purple. That's the main thing. Plus, it's just a little grimier. I cleaned it multiple times, but you know what? It works. I have a new iron. And hopefully this one doesn't explode on me. All right, so enough about irons and all of that. Let's talk about some stitching. Considering I started the hashtag Stitch for Ukraine, I should have, you know, participate in it. And I did a few things. So the first one, I actually have also already framed it. So this is a sunflower by Stitch Sprout. So this is a non-Ukrainian designer. I, of course, encourage you, do focus on the Ukrainian designers. But I've just, me personally, I've bought way more than I've stitched. This one I chose because it was a fundraising pattern, but also the pattern was just really nice. So look at this sunflower. There are three shades of yellow and three shades of like golden brown. It's just done really well. It's beautiful. I did change the charted blue. The as charted, the blue is a little bit lighter, but I chose this one because I learned from Stitch with Susie which colors were closest to the like official colors of the Ukrainian flag. So I, chose that blue. And also, I don't know how well you can see this, but the Ada is sparkly. Because I'm definitely one of those folks of like, the question is, should it be sparkly? And yeah, it probably should. If I can add sparkles, I almost always will. But this was like a pretty quick finish. I love like the lace effect here, and I just already had this Mill Hill frame in periwinkle. I was a little bit lazy with framing. I actually cut the Ada to size and just like kind of shoved it in there. I can tell when I look closely, it is not my cleanest framing job. It's like pooching out a little bit. So I am kind of considering maybe I should like undo it and put it on sticky board and then like put it back in the frame. We'll see. What I've learned is I can frame things if I cut them if they're like super tiny. Because this Ada is pretty stiff, but like start at around 6 inches, you can't do that and you're going to need to lace it again. I just really hate lacing, and the Ada I'm using here is particularly stiff. I get it from Million of Stitches, which is an Etsy shop based in Toronto. They are lovely, and I really love that they have these like 10 by 10 squares of Ada you can get, which I like to just have a variety of colors on hand because then I can just make a small and it's already a nice size, don't need to worry about it, but it is super stiff, which can be nice for stitching, but for framing and lacing, it's just really bulky and I don't like it. So that's why I was experimenting with some other strategies here, and I didn't ruin it. And it is good enough for now. And I was glad how quickly this came together. Another pattern, again, I chose to stitch a pattern by another designer because it was small and beautiful. So this is a Dove of Peace by Aya Rosen. This one, I just love the simplicity of the lines in this design. And this is the first time of me like stitching entirely 1/1 and my first time using silk. I have a tendency to like do multiple firsts at the same time in projects, which is maybe not a wise decision, but I do it anyway. I'm, of course, still fairly new at cross stitch. I'm not quite at 2 years yet. So there's like still a lot of new possibilities for me. What happened here is I actually just like had a total brain fart in the middle of counting, and I counted over one thread rather than over two to, find my starting place. And then I was like, oh, well, this is 32 count fabric. Well, I guess I could just do it over one. I was just like, oh, I made a mistake, but let's roll with it. Even though I could have corrected the mistake, I just realized that it was an opportunity and I thought it was fun. And I think it turned out pretty well. And look at this fabric. This is silver metallic 32 count even weave from Lilu X Stitch on Etsy. It's not my favorite of the even weaves out there, but it is pretty darn sparkly and it's certainly not bad fabric. So yeah, still have to frame this one. I'm a little sad because so this is variegated dinky dyes silk floss, and the variegation didn't really come across, but you know what? It is not bad for a first try. So I've seen people do whip go for a while, and I was like, always been like, cool, glad you're happy. I am never going to do whip go. So I'm doing whip go. I'll put up my board briefly just in case you're curious. I don't want to go over all of it because it's a lot, but what happened is I was watching my friend Lauren's videos over at Cross Stitch Bunny, and she has redone her board twice this year already. And I found it really interesting how she talked about how she was changing her goals to better fit her and what was actually achievable. And all of a sudden, it just something clicked, it went off in my mind. I was like, I see how I can do that for myself. So I have modified my board so many times already. And so far, what's been working for me is I have a mix of like big and small goals in there because I put off framing. So I just have this stack of projects that's growing on my ironing board that I need to frame because I do so many smalls. And that was just continuing to grow. And like it takes up half of my ironing board, which is not a particularly intelligent decision on my part, but hey, I'm an adult. I can make my own bad decisions. So some of my goals on WhipGo are just to like frame this specific piece that's been waiting there. So I have already completed a few things, which is exciting. But I also have some bigger things. And at least for now, since I'm still figuring this all out, I'm just changing it however I feel like it. I think my only rule is I'm not changing a goal once I've marked it as complete. But aside from that, everything else is fair game because I have a couple things that I want to stitch and all of that. And I, oh, my tablet thinks I'm talking to it. Yeah, voice control technology is making some electronic devices very confused. But I think another thing that was making me hesitant to do WhipGo was I have gifts that I need to stitch, and like these are projects with very specific timelines, so that wouldn't necessarily work well with WhipGo. And I'm also tend to be a monogamous stitcher, so all of that made it hard for me to figure out. But reminding myself that I can add finishing or other goals. I had one project that I just wanted to rechart, partially because I wanted to change the colors a little bit, and the original file didn't load into Pattern Keeper. So I am that person who bought Max Stitch precisely so I can rechart patterns I bought that don't load into Pattern Keeper, because that is how much I love Pattern Keeper. But that means I have some framed finishes. So this is actually another Stitch for Ukraine piece. I actually happened to be stitching this before everything popped off, because this is a gift for a friend. So my friend Emily, who is one of my roommates in college, she is expecting her second child. And we did a bit of a craft trade. She totally beat me. A couple months ago, I was scrolling through my Instagram feed and there was an ad for this beautiful knitting yarn. It was just my perfect colors and it was sparkly. So I posted on Facebook, asked like, hey friends, who wants to knit me something? I will cross stitch you something. And Emily volunteered. So she knit me the most beautiful cowl, which is perfect for the weather right now when we're transitioning into spring and it's not quite as cold. So I love it. I stitched this a while ago, and then it was just sitting on my ironing board as I do, unframed, because I don't like framing. Lacing is so tedious. I do prefer lacing though, because I find the end product is a little bit nicer and you can still like fudge it in the middle. Because if you're using glue or tape, it's harder to fudge things once you've like already put it down. Because with laces, like, oh, you notice you're a little bit off, you just like smudge it a little bit and then retighten the lace. It's great. But yeah, I was just putting it off. And I've actually had this completely framed for I think 2 weeks now. And I haven't photographed it or shared it with anyone yet because then Emily would see it and then she'd be like, Laura, why haven't you gone to the post office and sent it to me yet? I've yeah. I've been a little bit overwhelmed by current events lately, but also I just had a couple things at work happen all at once. So I like haven't been able to go to the post office. I've been doing much less updates. I haven't done one of these and it seems like forever. But anyway, so this was nice because I just went to Michael's. This is a Michael's frame. This is a Michael's mat. It's not the perfect size for this, but I think it's pretty good. And you'll notice the fabric is so sparkly. This is 28 count opalescent linen from Picture This Plus in Mystic. And it's just this very subtly variegated dark blue that I think it's just the perfect way to get like the feeling of the ocean at night because there's that variegation, but not too much. And it's just serene and beautiful. I did add, so all of the white thread you see here, that's étoile. And you'll notice I did modify the snowflake up there with an F. My friend Emily, they don't know the gender of their child yet, but whatever it is, their favorite name starts with F regardless. So this child gets an F. I made a few small modifications to the color palette just to make sure it would coordinate better with the color of the fabric. And you know what? I think I did a good job. I'm pretty proud of this. The next step is I need to package it up all nicely and send it off to Emily. Oh, and the reason why this was Stitch for Ukraine is was from the shop Nonstop Stitch, which it's a Etsy reseller, but it is based in Ukraine. I'm not sure if the designer themselves is also Ukrainian, but it is likely. But certainly a Ukrainian is benefiting from the sale of this pattern. The other thing I finished recently is I did this all recently. This is a pattern by Daily Cross Stitch, officially called Bird with Lavender, which is kind of an unexciting name. Part of the reason I chose this is it's just reminiscent of the Dove of Peace, a similar pose. It's carrying something in its mouth. It's just this bird is brown and it's carrying lavender. I actually asked some bird friends, like, okay, what type of bird do you think this is? And I have since learned in the birding community, there's this term called LBB or little brown bird, which they use to refer to all of those little brown birds that kind of look the same. So if you look at it one way, it's generic, indeterminate. But if you look at it another way, that means it can be whatever I want it to be. So I have decided that this is a wren, and I'm calling the wren of nice smells the younger cousin to the dove of peace because it's, similar pose, but, carrying lavender. The reason why I've decided this is a wren, is it's actually a gift for my friend Renee, who sometimes goes by Wren. So I made a wren for Wren. I don't think Renee watches these videos. If you do, sorry for spoiling it. My strategy is when I stitch gifts for people, I just don't tell them it's for them, and I still share it on Instagram, and hopefully they are surprised when they finally get it. When things are super specific, I might have to hide it from Instagram, but it's more fun to share. And this is another frame from 3 Inches Hand Embroidery. I love these frames. Look. It screws in on the back, so it's all nice and enclosed. They do a really nice job matching the grain, so the grain runs this way and is really consistent. This is an ebony stain, but it looks more dark brown. It matches the frame that I use for these guys, because when I framed this one, I actually bought 2 frames, an 8-inch, which I ended up using, and then the 7-inch. I didn't plan it, but I was like, oh, this works perfectly for this bird I stitched, so I used it, and that means Wren will get their present sooner rather than later. Exciting times. My next wood cove finish was framing Persian Love by Marumi Crafts. This one was nice. I stitched this one really quickly on a scrap of fabric, and I had no margins. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to do my normal lacing, so it sat as I do on my ironing board for a while, and I wasn't quite sure. So this was my first piece using sticky board. You can tell I did not do a good job cutting on this side, but that's okay. And I think I like sticky board. This was pretty easy, and it's like a lot smoother finish than my framing of my sunflower by Stitch Sprout, because it was poofing out a little bit. So that's why I think I might use sticky board for my sunflower as well. This one was kind of fun because I noticed when I was cutting everything that the fabric wasn't quite square. So I spent a long time stretching it along the bias, trying to, get one side to stretch a little bit more. And, I ultimately got it to work out. And it's really simple. This is my favorite color, purple. The ecru matches it so nicely. And also it's just nice having a pattern by a friend on my bookshelf. So Persian Love normally lives right here, so you can see it in my background. It matches my daruma really well, and I'm super excited that Marumi Crafts has come out with a new line of funky menagerie patterns. So hopefully someday soon I will get to those, and if you haven't checked them out, you should do that. The other thing I've done recently is I did Laurie Tunic. Anna told me, so this is Laurie Tunic from Peruvian Flair, charted by Ana Aguayo, and Anna told me I was the first person to buy this pattern. So I beat you. Yes, you, the person watching this video, I beat you. However, this is a competition everyone can win because the prize is getting to stitch this lovely pattern. So this is, as a lot of my patterns are, I have this plan and then something happens in my life and I must change everything, drop everything, and stitch that right now. And this is another example. I was prepping for class And the textbook I'm using happened to mention the Wari culture in passing. It definitely was not the main point. It was just like an example, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what to do. So, of course, I dropped everything and I started stitching Laurie Tunic. I did have this kind of a false start. So you can see on this one, I only stitched a quarter of the design. This is that piece of 20 count linen, which is my favorite color, our second favorite color, really. I, for whatever reason, love burnt oranges, the colors that are like the kind of brownish reds or brownish oranges, or like really bright, like right in between orange and brown. Those are some of my favorite colors. So if you have found fabric that are like right in that color range, please let me know, because I will want to go buy that. So I bought this 20 count linen because I was like, I love this color. But this piece of fabric and me specifically, we don't get along. And that's why I stopped after doing a quarter of the design. So let's talk. It's because it's 20 count. Like, I know the charm of linen is slubs are bigger or smaller, and some people hate that. I personally like it. But when we're talking at 20 count, the range and variation is a little bit bigger, because normally I'm stitching on 32 counts or even higher counts. And like, yeah, there's slubs, but it's still like pretty small because there's only so much that can fit in when you have 32 threads per inch. But at 20 count, there's more range of variation. So like your stitches are a little bit more wonky. And maybe I chose the wrong pattern. Like maybe I shouldn't have had a fill-in pattern with when the fabric is like that. The other thing, because I was stitching one over one, I had to stitch each cross as I went. So I would like stitch this row going in one direction, and I'd stitch the row underneath it going in the other direction. And you can tell they look different. So this is my question to you. Remember, I'm kind of a noob. What are your strategies for when you're stitching one complete X at a time? Where do you go? Should I be stitching like in diagonals? Because I guess I could do like a diagonal up, diagonal down, and like go that way. And would be more consistent. I don't know. There's some of like the really specific details that are eluding me for how to make one over one work, and I would love your input. Oh, also, I think this wasn't one over one. It was two over one because I needed that little extra thickness. So that's another reason why the stitches were laying a little bit differently in these fill-in parts, because like there's just a lot of thread there. But I wanted to do that. I felt it was necessary because you want this figure to look like that. So yeah, just did a quarter, but it looks nice. Also, if you have any finishing ideas, let me know. Like, should I make a pillow? Should I just frame it? I'm totally undecided, which is why it's still here. And I'm sad that, this fabric was a bust, but I learned something. But, since I had this false start, I, of course, had to do the rest of it. So I did then just complete the full pattern. This is on 32 count linen. This is from Extra Design, 32 count in rusty golden brown. Extra is like by far apparently my favorite fabric dyer. They just have really lovely colors, and just it's nice. I like it. They also tend to have more solids or subtle variegation. I tend to not be as much of a fan of like the really crazy fabrics, because then you can't do as much with your floss. So I tend to like to use fabric as negative space, and you'll see that's what I did here. I'm super proud. I was like being an artist. So you'll notice on this one, I stitched the figure, but I left the background blank so the fabric could shine through. On this one, I did the opposite. I stitched the background, but I left the figure blank. So I'm alternating how I use negative space here. This pattern was charted as full coverage, so you don't have to do what I did, but I like it. It also meant I didn't have to do as many stitches. I'm not as much of a fan of full coverage, partially because it's more work. And I love getting to play with both the idea of negative space and the textural difference between the fabric itself and the stitches. So another reason I chose to do that. And the colors here just complement each other so nicely. I did have a bit of a debate when I got to this one, because I almost substituted it for a different color blue. Because in Anna's model stitch, she used Yamir Silks in Tantalizing Teal, which is a bit brighter, a little bit more blue. This is a little bit more tealish. And I was like, oh, do I want to like try and match her model stitch? So I got a bunch of different colors, tested them all out, and I went with the colors as charted. The reason being is Anna's fabric was also a little bit brighter. This is a little bit more muted. So I felt that if I tried to use a really bright blue like 995 or 996, it might actually be too bright and it wouldn't mesh or meld with the other colors as well. So yeah, this slightly more muted color is perfect. I love it so much. The one thing I did do that was my addition is I made an extra border around the edge, which I think just makes it look a little bit more fancy. Oh, I guess I should hold this up higher. My arm's gonna hurt now, but I'm super proud of it. You'll notice this piece of fabric is really long, so I have a lot of fabric to work with. Can do a whole nother piece right here. I will need to hem and do something with this at some point, but right now I do have some things that are a little bit more time sensitive, so this one might wait a while before I finish it, but I'm really happy to have the stitching done. Um, it scares me a little, but I think what I want to do is a drawn thread hem, and then I will just use magnetic poster hangers like this one, and I'll put it up on the wall. But drawn thread hems are a little scary, and I love this piece, and I don't want to mess it up. So I might try and find a piece that is not quite as precious to me so I can practice drawn thread hems before I mess with this one at all. And then the last thing I have to show you today is this one. So this is another gift. This is a wedding gift for a friend who's getting married in September. And I'm doing it now because I've just been like thinking about it. Oh, right. I need to make the thing for Peter. I need to make the thing for Peter, even though it's months away. So I decided that I need to do this now. I need to like not have to worry about it anymore. And you'll notice again, sparkly. This is 14 count gold dust Ida from Charles Craft. So this is a pattern by Blonde Box Shell. They're on Etsy and they have patterns of all 50 states and the bedrock geology. So this is a heat map and each color corresponds to a different type of rock. So whether it's like Cretaceous age or Precambrian, there will be a key. But can you guess? Can you guess which state this is? I'm sure one of you at least, I know who you are, will be able to get this, but I'm curious. The next thing I need to do is I need to add the state and finish it. I'm not excited. This one is not as pleasant to stitch. It's fine. It's not a big pattern. I think it's only 3,200 stitches. I will get through it. It's for a friend. It's exactly what he wants. So this is for my friend Peter. He's a geologist. His wife is also a geologist. They met in the geology department. So, it's for them. I'm also deciding, this is my first piece where I'm doing it 3/1 because I really wanted that full coverage for the heat map. I didn't really want the fabric shining through in the state itself. And, the coverage is great. I love it. The process of stitching it is not as enjoyable because there's just like more, it's a little bit thicker. I'm finally figured out how to do a single thread loop start because I'm using 3 strands and it still feels a little bit like sorcery. Nothing's come unraveled yet though. I don't know. That's another reason why I tend to prefer higher count fabric because I really just prefer using loop start with 2 strands. It's easier and you get better coverage if you're only using 2 strands and it's on higher count fabric. So, I'm going, but this is one of the reasons I just haven't been stitching as much because my current project is a little unexciting and just had a lot of other like extra things pop up. I need to work. Anyway, so that is what I've been up to. Lots of other little things, but I, just needed to get this video out there. Another thing I wanted to leave you with is right now people are thinking about we should buy from Ukrainian designers, we should support them, but we should be thinking all year about who we are supporting financially and who we are buying from. One thing I've been doing over the past couple of years is putting a little bit of effort into researching different Indigenous companies because I want to make sure I am supporting them. So some of my favorites are 8th Generation. They're based out of Seattle. They have beautiful blankets and jewelry. I have several pieces of jewelry from them. Oh, my favorite is actually my phone case. So this is a Pacific Northwest Coast art rendition of a food lion, which is common in many different Asian societies. Because of this piece of art, Louis Gong, the artist who did this, he's my favorite artist by far. And his other stuff is lovely, but like this is what made me fall in love with him. So you should definitely check out 8th Generation. I have one of their blankets. It's super pretty. Um, these earrings I'm wearing, I found this person on Etsy. It was made by an Alaskan native. There's porcupine quills at the bottom. I've just spent a lot of time looking on Etsy to find people who say they are Indigenous. I mean, I could be mistaken, people could be lying, but I'm trying to make sure I am supporting different Indigenous artists. And I love this style, this particular shop, and because it's nice, but it still works well for like work earrings. Um, and the last place I've recently discovered is Cheekbone Beauty. So they are an Indigenous makeup brand. I did recently buy some lipstick from them. I didn't wear it though because it's like super bright red. It's a little brighter than I normally wear, and I don't think it would go with the t-shirt I'm wearing, but it makes me super happy to support them. And like when I need a really bright red, that's exactly what I want. So I will put links for everything I have mentioned below in the description box. It was lovely to see you. I would love to hear a comment. It helps to know that you're listening and you're cheering me on, and then I can go cheer you on. So, yeah, thanks for being here. Have a great week.